Everybody, and thank you so much for joining us today here with On Air with Lithium. I apologize for the delay. We're experiencing some technical difficulties earlier, but we're getting those worked out. So, welcome to 2016. With a new year comes new resolutions. That's both personally and professionally. And today we're going to take a look at community planning and resolutions. What happened in 2015, and what can we do better or learn from in 2016. We have an amazing group of panelists here today, and we'll be discussing these topics. So if you have any questions for them, go ahead and post in the community blog, or you can also tweet #OnAirWithLithium, and we'll be answering those as well. And so without further ado, let's go ahead and start off with some intros. So Andy, if you want to start us off.
Sure. Hey, my name's Andy Kay. I'm a moderation team lead and community admin lead and project manager for the Lithium community and co-host here for the On Air with Lithium.
Okay, Debbie, you want to go next? And then after Debbie, we'll have Joe, Lily, and I'll wrap it up.
Great, sounds good. Hi, my name is Debbie Lee, and I'm a community manager at HP. Specifically, I work on the HP support forum, and there I nurture and grow our team of super users who we call our HP experts.
I'm Joe Cottrell. I'm Lithium's Chief Community Officer. Have a variety of roles at Lithium. Support our services organization as they deliver solutions to customers, support our sales team, including our customer success managers as they continue to take care of customers and help them grow. And then more recently, work with the product team to help cycle our learnings and best practices into the product. So I'll talk a little bit about the last item today.
Hi everyone, I'm Lily McDonald. I'm with National Instruments. I'm the community manager there. We're based out of Austin, Texas. And my job is your typical community manager job, I suppose, with a lot of focus on customer interaction.
Perfect, thank you guys so much. And I'm Jen Chen. I'm the community manager for Lithium Technology. So I get to work with people like Joe and Andy, and of course help to support wonderful community managers like the ones that we have today, like Debbie, Lily, and hopefully Allison will be joining us soon. So let's go ahead and get started. Taking a look back first at 2015, what is one of your proudest accomplishments? So if you guys can go ahead and describe that for us, and just feel free to jump in.
Well, I would say getting this job at HP. I'm pretty new to the gig. I've been here for about 9 months, and just getting acclimated to the team and the role and the community, like just getting to know the community, and like it's tough to get into a community that you can't really see. It's a little internal. Like the public can't really see what we're doing behind the scenes, so I didn't really get a chance to get acclimated to that prior to joining this, but I just treaded lightly and I didn't dive in because I didn't want to disrupt anything, but I found excuses to reach out to them, and now I get along with them and they know to reach out to me if they have any ideas or have any questions for me. So yeah, that's my proudest accomplishment for last year.
My answer is almost the exact same. I've only been in this role for about 9 months as well. It was really difficult at first to take over a community that's over 12 years old now. We've been with Lithium for 12 years, and there's a lot of history there, a lot of users who've been there 10 or more years, and it was a lot to dive into, and I'm finally, accustomed, I think, and people know, they know my name, they know to come to me, and it's going well at this point.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think we're actually all in the same boat here, the three of us. I started as the Lithium community manager in June, I believe, or maybe it was July, but they really say that time flies when you're having fun. That's very true, and I think some challenges of coming into a new role, like Lily mentioned, is taking on the history of the community, and I definitely felt that here with Lithium. There's a lot of initiatives and planning that goes on behind that, and I think what the challenge of any new role is taking that strategic step back and instead of wanting to dive into everything right away, really taking the time to plan and eke out your goals.
I guess Andy and I are sort of the odd men out here. Both of us have been in these roles for quite a while. I've been at Lithium for 10 years, and of course neither one of us are community managers, but we do work with community managers every single day. So we can share a little bit about kind of what we're hearing and what's changing. But I think what we hear from the three of you is something we encounter all the time, and Andy, tell me if you disagree, that many people in community manager roles have not been in the same role for more than 2 years. And so even though the communities are very mature, like National Instruments and like HP, if you're a community manager new to that role, it's kind of hill to climb to get to grips with the community and feel like you're really part of it and in charge.
Yep, no disagreements from me on that. It's always a steep learning curve.
So I think we touched on this a little bit with starting new roles and taking on new roles or even having that steep learning curve like Andy mentioned. But moving on to our second question, what's one challenge that you faced and tackled in 2015? I think especially for Debbie and Lily, if you guys have any specific examples that of challenges that you faced or tips you would give even in tackling these challenges, feel free to share those.
Yeah, so my proudest accomplishment was also my biggest challenge, just getting to know the community. I don't want to be that person who rushes in and makes all these changes without knowing their history and their best practices. So yeah, I struggled with that a little because I've been a community manager prior to that for 6 years, and I was at 2 companies where I built those communities from the ground up. And this was my very first time going into a community that somebody else built. And so it's a really big community. We have other community managers, so I went to them for advice, and they're find little excuses to PM them or reach out to them. Just let yourself marinate for a while. So I just treaded lightly, and I was fortunate enough to actually get to meet a lot of these people over the summer during our meetup, so that helped too.
So for me, my challenge is pretty much the same as well, obviously starting with a new role. I came in and there were a lot of changes and decisions made that weren't documented, and that was really difficult to understand, why aren't we making use of this particular feature, or why do we have this setting a certain way? So what I first did, my very first week, was I went into the Lithium community ad section, and I looked at every single setting, and I made notes as to this doesn't make sense to me, this isn't a best practice, I want to find out more about this. And then I followed up internally with the proper teams to find out what's some of the history behind that. But because it is such an old community, a lot of people who made those decisions weren't around anymore, and we kind of were just making some guesses as to why things were done the way they were. But luckily, I think kind of with me starting was a chance to almost start over. In some ways, we can make new decisions and change things up a little bit for people. Of course, I didn't want to start off with changing a bunch of features and then upsetting some customers, so we did a little changes here and there, and always made sure that we communicated that to our users. And we actually made a private area for some of our super users, so we invited them there, and we share with them hey, there's this new feature coming out, what do you guys think? Or we're looking at changing this particular design or this particular layout, what do you think? And it's been really helpful to get some feedback and try to deal with some of the negative feedback before it actually happens, and we get that out there in the community.
Yeah, and I think, Lily, you touched on a lot of great points here, and I think one of the common challenges that community managers face is looking at all the changes that were made and understanding why they were made. And, that's a huge challenge, because not only sometimes are you coming into a role where you are coming to manage a existing community, so there is someone before you, but also there are many different individuals and teams who are invested in the community. And that's a great thing, but then you have to take that step back and look at why were these changes made, why is this happening, or why is it structured the way it is. So I think one thing for me was facing that same challenge and coming to understand the history of the community, as well as documenting everything going forward. So, one recommendation that I have, whether it's in whatever role you have, is to document everything. Make sure that, for example, if you're launching a new board in community, you document the objective behind that board, the owner of the board, why we need that board, and make that in a place, or put that in a place where it's readily accessible by everybody within the company. So not necessarily just an email thread between you and a PM or the director of a department within your company, but making sure that that information is readily accessible, so that if anyone has questions, or let's say roles change in the next 2 months or so, that you can go back to that. And another thing is, community management is really busy too. So there's a lot of things that I did 3 months ago that I don't remember every single detail of. I wish I did, but I don't. So it's always great to go ahead and look at those. I know some people use Confluence. We use Jira here. At my old company, we used Asana. So whatever that is, document it and make sure it's readily accessible for everybody.
I think the documentation gets you to a certain point, but beyond that, just interactions with people. One of my favorite quotes has always been Ray Ozzie, who developed Lotus Notes, who said, meetings are not the place to exchange information, meetings are the place to express emotion. And I think that's kind of what you're missing sometimes when you come into a new community or a new organization. It's easy to find out how things are set up and to find the documentation, but the stuff that's often missing is, what do we care about? What are our values? What are the principles we never violate as a community? And sometimes those have to do with super users, sometimes those have to do with the company and things we never do as a company, and I think those are very seldom documented. You really need to work sometimes with a team and with a company for a while to understand, what do we believe? That's it's just an interesting thing that sometimes I know when I joined Lithium, I felt like it took me almost a year to really understand those principles, right? What guides the decisions we make every single day.
I think that's a great point about emotion. When I try to document some of the decisions that I'm proposing, it's not just here's my proposal A, B, and C, and here's all the steps, but I write it in a discussion form where I can go back and forth with other people internally. So if you did look at that a few years from now, you would see our decision-making process. It's not as straightforward as making a decision if you don't know what's some of the background behind it. So even though you're not capturing like that vocal emotion, it's still as close as we can get in text form.
Definitely. So, yeah, I think that with those challenges that we face, there are a lot of common challenges that community managers face. So, for our viewers, if you have a challenge that you're facing right now and you want to get our panelists input or advice on it, go ahead and tweet us, again, #OnAirWithLithium, or you can comment in the blog post with your questions, and we'll go ahead and tackle that for you. But for now, let's go ahead and move on. So in terms of community planning for the year, and I think this is a really good question, especially as many of us are new in our roles and are developing our community plans. What are your top 3 tips for planning for the year?
Well, my first one to share is to just like trust and lean on my team more. Like coming from a startup background, and it was a very small startup, it was kind of like the wild, wild west there, and like I felt like if I didn't check on my community all the time and I wasn't there all the time, that the community might fall apart. But I've learned to like have backups in place, and they don't have to be other community managers. It could be like my admin or moderators. Like I'm allowed to take vacations. Going back to like some of what you were saying about documenting, even in the short term, it's helpful for the people around you to know what you're doing.
I guess one of the tips I would have about planning is I find that sometimes community managers neglect to think about what's happening with the company over the next year when they create their community plan. They tend to focus just on the community, and so often you know what's going to happen. You know there are big events that are going to develop, and sometimes those are events that are company-wide, like new product releases. Sometimes they're events like redesigns of the website, and just to kind of step back and say, what's the environment this community, what's going to change in our environment? What's going to change in what matters to the company? And then as soon as you think about that and you put those things on that yearly timeline, all of a sudden you realize there are a million things that you need to think about, right? Oh, wow, if we're going to launch this product, does it change our hierarchy? Do we have experts? Are there people in perhaps a beta program who are going to need to get involved? Should we be supporting the beta program? And so very often community managers treat that on a reactive basis based on requests they get internally. But I think it's great just to step back and say, okay, even if you've completed your community plan, to think about, okay, step back and what's happening with the company, and how does this relate to it? How do I support it with the community, or how do I use it to support me and my goals in growing this community and making it successful and strategic to the business?
Yeah, I agree with Joe on that one for sure. When we started our 2016 planning, we first looked at, we made a timeline of everything that was going to happen in the company, like are there any new products or any marketing campaigns that we should be aware of? Is there big events going on worldwide? And we made a timeline of that, and then we interjected, here's what we need to do for each of these big events. Do we need to make a new board? Do we need to make labels? Who's gonna be the internal champion? Who's our admin? So we definitely have those two timelines synced up together. And my other tip besides that one is, whatever changes you're going to make, definitely communicate those really early and as often as you can. I had already mentioned we have a round table for our super users, but a lot of the times I'll post something and it'll be a little bit of feedback here and there, and then we're getting closer and closer to the release date, and I'm like, I'm not too comfortable with the feedback I've gotten so far. Let me make sure I remind them, here's the date that this is coming, please give me some feedback. So even though you've put that information out there, you definitely want to push them to get more feedback on that before it actually happens.
Yeah, I actually really like what you said there, Lily, and I think one good point that Joe recommended to me when I started making changes in my role here is think of all the questions that people in various roles, whether they're a customer, a super user, someone in another department, think of all the questions that they're going to have and anticipate your answers to those questions. Obviously, when you make a change, you know why you're making that change, or hopefully you do. But think of other people's perspectives on that. So whether that's getting some input from your mentors within the company or from other community managers, try to think of it with a broader perspective, and then that way you can take that bigger picture approach and be prepared with those answers when people come to you with questions, instead of being like, I don't know, or positioning that better as I don't know, but basically saying I don't know. So being able to think of that and communicate that better is definitely one of my tips. And then I actually have this as one of my desktop wallpapers, but my wallpaper says you can do anything but not everything. So I think that's the nature of community management. We want to do everything. We want to tackle everything all at once. And I learned when I started this role is that that's not possible. I'm only one person. I have 8 hours at the office every day, and I can't tackle everything. So being able to take that step back, and I guess this leads to my second and third point, is prioritize, taking a look at what works, what doesn't, and it's important then a lot of your goals or a lot of your goals align with the company goals, because that is what will get you the buy-in from your team. And I just want to give a quick shout out and welcome to Allison.
Hello, thank you. Good to be here.
Yeah, so we were having some technical difficulties earlier, but I just wanted to give a quick intro to Allison and let her introduce herself. So if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, Allison.
Great, you got it. Hi, everyone. My name is Allison Leahy. I run community and social support programs for Fitbit. And I've been with the company since late 2013 when we launched our community on Lithium, and been having a great time growing the team and getting to know the community since.
Great, so actually I think this would be a good question for you, Allison. We were talking about top 3 tips in community planning and what you would recommend to community managers out there who are trying to tackle this challenge.
All right, community planning. So I can talk a little bit about top 3 tips for this year, especially working in a company of our size. What has really come to light for me is that it's important, especially in this early part of the year, to identify some of your main priorities and goals now and get buy-in from your leadership teams, and especially to ensure that your goals align with the company goals. So you can show and demonstrate essentially how the community is driving, whether that's the bottom line or driving, in our case, retention and engagement are big strategic goals and initiatives for us that reach out all the way through the company. So how can we as a community and a community team contribute to that? And then setting milestones. So once you get the buy-in and you have agreement and everyone is on the same page and sees what your goals and your objectives are, how they align with the company's mission and the bigger picture, setting milestones that you can track against. And once you sort of lay out that roadmap, it becomes a little bit clearer maybe who you might want to include in the process. And something, having the good fortune now of a couple years working here, I've been able to identify sort of some of our key allies in the company who may be able to help out, even if they aren't working for the same department, that you might kind of recognize as a key contributor. Identifying those players across the company and including as many people as you can in the process. So one of the areas that I think gets left out a lot in some of these discussions are teams like HR and finance, and you may be able to find some good allies there that you might not have thought of previously. So sharing your plans broadly and always kind of illustrating how that ties back to the larger company goals.
I love the fact that we're talking about planning, but we're also talking about communication, because, I think we all learn this when we promote the community, is we think we're promoting it effectively, but 4 out of 5 people have never heard of us, right? And we learn this with usability testing. We take all this care in creating our community, but then when we really ask users, nobody knows what's going on. So I think that importance of once you've created your plan, to really make sure people understand what you're doing, people in different departments, your allies, because they probably don't know. I mean, I think it's hard to get outside your own head and really, relate, put yourself into someone else's shoes and say, do they really know what's happening with community? So I love that communication theme. You're not done when you created your plan. you've just started, right? Now you got to socialize that thing to your team and to other people in your company and to your community.
So this is actually a question I thought of as people were talking and sharing their tips. As you plan for the community and as you develop that community plan, what tools do you guys use to showcase that plan, or even just have that plan somewhere where it's easy to view and things like that?
I'll take a stab at this and just share some of the tools we use. A lot of the tools have been determined for us. They're just tools that our company uses, but we do use an internal wiki, which I find to be super, super helpful. I use a calendar plugin. I also am a heavy user of Google Spreadsheets, and highly recommend taking some tutorials and designing those spreadsheets so they're visually attractive, because people won't really open, or even myself, if I'm heavily using a Google spreadsheet, I don't want to go to just like a blank screen, throwing some branded colors on there. But definitely just calendaring on a shared wiki and then some of the shared Google apps as well.
Yeah, adding to Allison's comment, I really love Google. One thing that I made the mistake of doing when I first came here was just putting all my ideas literally down on paper. And people who know me well say that my handwriting leaves much to be desired, which is true. I sometimes can't even read it myself. So that was a fault of mine. But then what I started to do was put my community plan down in a Google Doc, or in a Google spreadsheet rather, and I have different columns to help me better understand and prioritize things. So first, I have the status of each initiative. For example, if it's something that's done, if it's ongoing, if it's future, if it's on hold, and then I have conditional formatting set up so there are colors to help me differentiate those. And then I have the project name, resources, description, key people involved, things like that that will help anybody, whether it's my manager or someone like Joe, take a look at that and know what I'm working on, what I'm prioritizing. I think even having that done section really helps, because then I can take a step back and show someone, hey, this is what I've done in the past 6 or 7 months.
Well, it's helpful to me, I know, because I'm kind of plugging in and out of the process. You're running the community, but when I show up for a meeting, I very often go to your plan because I've got it, you know, as one of my Chrome bookmarks. I go to the plan and I say, oh, that thing we talked about last week, did that become part of the plan? Right, so I can immediately find it. I don't have to ask you to bring me up to date. I can see where you're at. I can see all the things that are in motion, and that helps me. It helps everybody who participates, but it isn't their all-day, everyday job. It helps them kind of participate. I know, at least speaking for myself, helps me participate in a more valuable way. I'd be curious, Debbie, how that works with you guys, because I often think HP, you guys are as operationally sophisticated, community-wise, as any company I know. I think actually NI is probably pretty close. Mature, large, well-run communities. What does that look like, Debbie, on the HP side in terms of both the planning and the communication part?
So we recently had a forum redesign, and I can like kind of go through the process of what we did with that. Like, we're very much into Microsoft products here, so we use PowerPoint to make a presentation for all the stakeholders and get everyone's opinion on that. And throughout the entire process, we send regular updates to everyone. And we use SharePoint to document everything, and we can go in there and people can see where we're at a specific point. And then as far as like personal goal setting, we do that on Workday. And we have different buckets, like, you know, there are personal development goals and goals that tie into company culture as well as business development. So I set my personal goals and align them with what the company has as like their main goal. And personally, I keep a Google Doc of all of the milestones that I hit or plan on hitting. So if anyone comes to me, I can like have a little something to show them about like what I've done in this quarter and what I plan on doing in future quarters for the rest of the year.
That's great. I remember when I started working with HP in 2008, and I started seeing how they were setting it up, I'm like, this looks like a real department, right? Where so often with community and social, it was this group of people in a corner, making it up as they went along. No one knew what they were doing, you know. It was sort of like treated like an experiment. And then when I started working with HP, I'm just like, wow, this is what it looks like when it grows up. You know, it's like any other group, well-defined, integrated with everything else you do, using the same tool sets, etc.
That's part of why I joined the team, because I understood what a community manager does. I mean, I speak to other people who are looking for community managers, and it turns out that like maybe they want a social media manager or an event planner. I mean, a community manager might do some of those things, but that's not their main thing. But HP seems to like really understand what a community manager actually does.
Perfect. So it looks like we have some good discussion going on there, but let's move a little bit along. We've talked a little bit about looking back at 2015 goals, goals ahead, and let's see, it's 27th of January, so a little bit towards the end of the first month of the new year. And for you guys, as you look forward to 2016, what are you the most excited about, both the trends you're seeing in community or for your own communities?
Right, I can kick things off. I am excited about so much this year, really. I think, the Fitbit community has reached a new level of maturity. We opened our doors to the public in 2015, just in November, so starting to get indexed, have more organic traffic. User acquisition is higher than it's ever been. We're gaining a lot and so there's a lot of opportunity now for us to maximize the business return and the customer returns on that new growth. So I'm industry-wise, I'm really interested and looking forward to sort of the trends and understanding of the omnichannel customer experience. So we're starting to hear that word pop up more. I think if you consider that 2015 was a very good year for communities, we've seen a lot of big brands choose to launch pretty awesome communities. Now it's about how do we integrate that community experience with customer support. If that happens to be that's definitely one of the main business reasons for creating a community if you're a big brand. So for plugging into customer support, and for us that means integrating with some of our tools so we can give customers a seamless experience, whether they tweet at us or contact us through the community, understand sort of what their social customer profile is and maybe feed that back into our systems, learn a little bit more just so we can serve them better, and also so we can reduce friction. So so looking at how social and community really talk to the greater customer relationship management systems. And I think there's a pretty high demand. I mean, like we've seen, customers have pushed us to have super fast response times on social. Some companies are going into the social sphere a little wistfully because it's sort of it's table stakes now. I think we're starting to see the same thing with transitioning those experiences. If a customer contacts us on Twitter, they expect us to either connect them to a full resolution pretty seamlessly. So there are a lot of technical challenges with that, and I think that I'm really excited to work with our CS tools and technical teams here to understand what opportunities there are there and leverage and just provide better service. So that's a big one for us. I think also, and similar to that, it's horizontal integration, so integrating community into product and into just holistic marketing plans as well. So again, considering that community is great in the Fitbit sense for offering ways to think about your health and fitness differently or connect you to other users in a similar sort of with similar health goals and desires. And there's a lot we can do on the content side to improve usage of the products and just serve customers better from the non-customer support standpoint, and really create sort of a niche community. And I think that really does take broad horizontal integration with our marketing teams, but then also with the platform itself. So a lot of technical improvements, I think, and just making sure that community is never existing in a silo, and that everything we do to bring our customers and our community users closer to the brand and better serve them. And so I think those are a few ways that we'll look towards improving that community experience this year.
So I'm really excited for 2016 because today, actually, we are having our kickoff call with Lithium to talk about migrating from, we have 2 different platforms right now for our community, and we're going to be taking everything from the other platform and moving it all over to Lithium. So this is a huge undertaking for us, and we're going to be starting to use some Lithium features that we're not currently using, like the TKB, blogs. I think those are the biggest 2 right now. Lithium Social Web. So it's really exciting for me. I've been a part of these sort of kickoffs before, and I know what to expect, and I know it's going to be a lot of hard work. But with the community as old as it is, there's just so many things that have kind of just been kind of a little stagnant over the past few years. So I think this is going to really change things up for a lot of users, and I think it'll be a really positive outcome in the end, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Quick question on that, Lily. Do you know how many new community members that will introduce into the Lithium community?
Well, because we have the 2 platforms, but we're using SSO, so single sign-on, we really won't necessarily get any new users because they have one NI profile connecting them to both platforms. So we might have some users that are really active in the other community right now that will start to be more active in the main, well, I guess the one community that we'll eventually end up with. But overall, I would expect the numbers to be about the same.
Oh, that's awesome, Lily. So as some of you know, like HP split into 2 different companies last year, and before the split and prepping for it, the enterprise community housed the commercial forum as well. So, and I work on the consumer forum, so we had to migrate all the commercial content into the consumer community, and we ended up gaining a couple experts from that and a lot of content. Yeah, but in terms of what I'm looking forward to in 2016, I am looking forward to spreading the word of the community, both internally and externally. I don't think many people know about the HP Experts program, and me being new to HP, I was surprised at how many employees are unaware of the program or the community in general. So one thing that we're doing, I have a co-community manager on the English language forum, is that he's going to be leading some training courses for employees to learn about the community and best practices on how to use them. And I've been trying to get a blog content strategy together. It was a little stagnant prior to me joining, and I've made a couple posts like on some of the perks that our experts have gotten, or like a meetup that they've gone to, and a couple times that I've posted, people have written to me like, that sounds really cool, like how do I become like an expert? So I think that would be good for making the existing experts feel like they're part of a cohesive community, as well as showcasing to other people the community and the program.
Yeah, Debbie, I love what you said about the blog and content program, because that's definitely something that I'm looking forward to for 2016, and something that I'm working on as well. I think that it's so easy to get just a little bit stuck in the kind of content that you're putting out there. So for me, the challenge is taking that step back and looking at the content we have, and then from that determining what's the content that we don't have on the community, and what are some ways that we can leverage that or really provide that for our community members. So it looks like we have some questions from the community as well. Andy, do you want to give that first one a shout out?
Okay, so question from the community managers. Have you noticed any change in behaviors within your community during the last year? See Alison nodding there.
Well, I was just thinking because, I saw this question posted, and I was thinking about this and how I might choose to answer. And so we measure behavior, we measure engagement. There have been a couple notable changes that I think people might be interested to hear, specifically around opening the community up. Initially, my initial reaction was, well, we've just noticed more people behaving, but that comes in a lot of different flavors, right? So the Fitbit community, there were 3 on-ramps from the .com, the help site, and our mobile apps. So people had to be pretty inclined to discover community for the first 2 years. And then in November, when we opened the community up, we noticed a couple things. And one, of course, was that more people were being introduced to community through Google, which is great. Google, or through search engines, and when you search, you're going to be delivered to the most relevant content. So that we felt was a win, and as a direct result of that, we saw essentially a drop in page views, so people were finding the content they needed, but they were staying on the site about as long as they had been previously, maybe a little dip in time on site. But where we really notice a difference in behavior, and so this is something that we're going to look at fixing or just improving, essentially. But we noticed that we experienced a pretty significant dip in registration. So when you think about member behavior, that essentially means that we're acquiring a lot of new readers, but not necessarily participants. And our traffic actually went up almost 4-fold, but our total post count doubled. So this, I haven't dug into it a ton, and I think that even 2x content is great, but we do want to encourage more content creation, and ideally, again, back to the idea that we're more than a support community, although about 70% of our users do visit for support. Driving people to discuss their, athletic experience, training experience, and things of that nature. So I think there are a couple initiatives there, but really we just noticed a lot more passive participation. And something that I think trends pretty regularly, or is pretty common across communities. But that is something we're looking to improve upon just through better content, and then possibly testing out some CTAs to actually register and join the community.
So kind of tying in, those partially answers, I think, some of the question that's come from one of our member of the Lithium team, and it's kind of, have you seen any change in the strategies? Like, did that actually affect your strategy for the year, just sort of noticing these changes, the behavior? And
It's kind of a great question, right? You started with a plan last year. We just talked about planning. Did it change during the year, and what surprised you? It's a great question.
There were a couple things that threw us off last year. I think planning for, and I'll make this short so I don't monopolize, but planning for this open community, we understood that there would be a big spike in traffic. So I think forecasting and staffing for that new influx of users was definitely a big challenge and a point of interest, so we could train a larger team. We essentially doubled our team size, train all of these new moderators, give them enough content and enough experience so that they would be prepared for introduction of new users and what we anticipated would be a different or new user type with potentially less existing customers, more prospective users, more people wanting to talk about Fitbit and wearable technology and the company rather than the user experience. So trying to weave all that in. And then what we had to do, we definitely had to change our strategy about, as we were starting to add new talent to the team, figure out what we were going to do with these individuals in the interim. So there were a few, it created some opportunity for us to really sort of use new talent but ricochet it into totally different programs that never would have sprung up otherwise. So we started a focused effort around our feature request board, also an area that's still, that has matured less rapidly than the rest of the community, let's say, just due to resource investment. And so we had new talent, new people we could invest there. And then also with some member engagement programs, so trying to keep our engagement up. So, and this is something, you know, that we're very privileged. I think we have our executive leadership team, my boss, really believes in community, and so we were able to sort of be in this overstaffed position for a little while and take advantage of that. But it's not something that I had necessarily planned or prepared for, simply because indexing the community site, the ramp up was a lot slower than we anticipated. So I think, yeah, so I think that's kind of was the big sort of pivot for us.
Debbie or Lily, anything to add?
No, honestly, I have not noticed any behavior changes in the last year, that at least since I've joined, but I think that's just given the nature of how you know, established the community is and the members in it. Actually, in the past year, one thing we did was give our super users some more permissions and abilities to do things like move topics, get rid of spam, mark solutions, and so this, while this wasn't really their decision, but it was us kind of forcing behavior changes on them. I do look at the metrics to see, you know, how much they are helping out with some of those abilities, and some of them are still being really careful about what they do, and I think that's understandable. But for the most part, I think it's gone really well, and they've really seemed to like that they can do these things. Now they don't have to report it to a moderator, they can just move a topic themselves.
And was that, Lily, was that a planned change? Is that something you guys knew you were going to do? Or did that idea just kind of come up during the year?
So when I first started 9 months ago, one of the first things I did was look at the current state of the community, and like I said, we were pretty stagnant for the past 2 years, so I did a lot of research to try to find out why that was, and I proposed a lot of different easy wins that we can act on now, and one of those was, you know, take some of the burden off of the community team and give more permissions to these super users. So it was planned, but it was one of those, it wasn't planned since the beginning because I only came on 9 months ago.
Got it. Thank you.
And at HP, we recently rolled out our gamification project where users can earn badges for certain behaviors, such as like new post or giving kudos or receiving kudos, accepted solutions. And we asked our super users for feedback on this, and they weren't too keen on it. They cracked a lot of jokes about it, but this wasn't necessarily a project that it was for retaining experts. It was more for our new users. So we didn't get quite the feedback that we wanted from our super users, but we rolled it out and they ended up kind of liking it, surprisingly. It's funny, we rolled it out, and since we have such a huge community, it took a while for everyone to get their badges, like over the course of a few hours. And some people got it before others. And pretty much all of our super users have full trophy cases, because we only rolled out like up to like 75 posts or 75 kudos, so full trophy cases, and instantly they posted on our private board, which is just for them. They're like, I've got my badges in my trophy case, and other people were replying like, I don't have mine, like, did I not earn that?
I think that's exactly right. Nobody wants them until someone else gets it. So when someone else gets it, everyone's like, what? Where's mine?
Yeah, and then we had our in-person meetup where we also gave badges to everyone who came to this meetup. And then later on, they started putting in other suggestions, like, can they be retroactive? Can we get them for attending in 2013 and 2014? And they had a bunch of other ideas. But then, like, in the broader community, I mean, we didn't launch this that long ago, so we're still keeping an eye on it. We did notice that there were more accepted solutions and kudos. I don't know the exact numbers, but there were more, so
Great
something's
stuff,
working
yeah.
there.
Yeah, I think a few of us have seen that on various places. Okay, so we're at the top of the hour, so just want to finish off, so again, another one that's come kind of from the community, but also from the Lithium team. So we're looking for anybody, do any of you have like one quick tip that you'd like to share for community professionals for what to help meet their 2016 goals or challenges?
Well, I think I have a recommendation that may be more general than that. A lot of community managers are reporting up, and they're not going to be the most senior decision maker. And sometimes it can be challenging, even if you believe something really strongly, it can be challenging to go forward with your gut. And I think that it's really important to, of course, carefully kind of phrase and make sure that you're using the science and the data and the logic to present your arguments. But to stick with your guns, and really, even if people come back with questions or saying like, no, that may not be the right approach, understanding that you're the one that has the experience, and just being confident and continuing to present yourself with that confidence and advocate for your communities with that confidence. Because it's often easier to say yes in those situations, or I agree with you in those situations, than to say no and here's why. And sometimes you have to say no and here's why more than once. So I just want to throw it out there that it's definitely worthwhile to not compromise on certain things you believe in.
Debbie or Lily, any other, have you got tips that you'd like to add?
Well, that was an awesome tip, Alvin. Yeah, I would say, like, I mean, in the past, like, I've kind of felt burnt out in the community management role, but like, I love it so much, I still keep doing it. But I would say I just learned, like, in recent years to like never have my calendar like at 100% capacity, because there's always some sort of like community emergency going on, like the forum went down, or there's spam, or maybe some members got into it. And you're just going to be exchanging so many emails and on the phone for so long that you then can't do all your other work. So I make room in my calendar for emergencies like that.
Yeah, that's always a good one.
I think my tip would be to keep it simple. Don't create new roles, new boards, new labels for every single thing that pops up. See how you can kind of roll things into something that already exists, because 12 years later, you might have, hundreds of roles and hundreds of ranks, and you really don't want to be in that position. So keep it as simple as you can to start with, and see how you can consolidate.
That's great advice.
Awesome. So thank you guys so much for joining us today on Air with Lithium. I had a really good time learning from all these panelists, and I wanted to take this opportunity to thank them again. And for people viewing out there, thank you so much for joining us today. And we will see you next time on Air with Lithium. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.